My guest today has made 9 albums. She starred in 2 short films and a movie musical. She's published poetry. She's held exhibitions of her art. She's written 2 string quartets and shared the stage with the country's leading orchestras. She's also been nominated for 3 Junos, 2 Geminis, and her records have been released worldwide. In the studio today with me is Sarah Slean. Hello, I'm Shannon Skinner, and this is Extraordinary Women TV. Well, hello, Sarah.
Hi.
Well, thanks for being here in the studio today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, I know that you are sort of in transition. You're spending some time in Montreal. You're based in Toronto, but
yeah.
You're off to Montreal for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What takes you there?
Well, I got a grant to finish a project that I've been dreaming of and planning for a long time. It's a bilingual musical. So I started writing it in September. I'll be in Montreal until the end of the year, and then I will go to Paris for another sort of immersive French experience. But the musical I'm writing is set in Montreal. So.
Well, that's exciting. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Now, you released your first album when you were 19. That's quite an accomplishment. You've had so many accomplishments since then. Would you ever have imagined that you would be in the place that you are, going back and looking at when you were from the point of view of a 19-year-old?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you had interviewed that 19-year-old, she would have told you that she was thinking about cardiology. Cardiology as a profession, you know, really interested in science, very interested in medicine, a passionate academic, and just really wanting to do that. And it's so funny to me that life is more so that we think of life as this process of accumulation, of gathering information about things and then making choices and this pulling in and this building up of a pile. And I really think that that's completely the opposite of the actual analogy that's going on, and that is the sort of peeling down of the layers. You go through life and understand what is false, and you keep taking these layers off.
Like an onion.
And getting closer to the real deal, the unadulterated, undiluted truth of what you are. And you can go down all kinds of wrong paths, but the truth of what you are will always bring you back to it on that path. And it's almost like you don't have a choice. You can make all these conscious decisions to do other things, to try and be someone else, but life is going to tell you who you are time and time again.
Now, in your writing, you've been influenced, or you pull from philosophers, and in fact, well, Joseph Campbell is someone who has influenced you or inspired you. Follow your bliss. What does that mean to you?
Oh, God. He's one of my favorites. In fact, if I was to write a list of all the people that that have influenced me the most, he's the one that I am saddest that I will never get to speak to or meet personally. It's not just follow your bliss. It's because, I mean, people do that and still get in all kinds of messes, myself included. But I think it means that the only authority in your life is inside you. You can't look for the government or your parents or your religion or any of these outer external things to give you the authority and the guidance that you want and need and crave. It's inside you, and the effort to hear that is the only effort you need to make.
So would you say that most of us then look outside of ourselves to authority for what approval or for decision making?
Exactly.
Or yeah, guidance?
Who should I be? Where should I go? What should I do?
So do you think we always know the answer inside? Do you
Yeah.
think that we need to be prompted sometimes, or do you think we need some wisdom from someone who might have 20 years more of life experience?
Right. But see, this is where I would diverge and say no. I mean, that person may have all kinds of worldly wisdom, but they have lived an entirely different experience than you're living in an entirely different time. You know, like, God bless my parents. They are wise, wonderful, loving people. But they grew up when the world was totally different. And they have a completely different vantage than I do. And I will have a completely different vantage than my children. And I feel like all we need to teach our children is that the answer is in there. If you do enough diligent searching, it's in there and you feel it. And don't let anybody else sway you. Don't let the peanut gallery, don't let the trends of the day or of the culture, don't let anything sway you.
I've written down some of your lyrics here that I love. There's more wisdom in the iris bud than all our centuries of words. I mean, that's so beautiful. And that ties right in with what you're saying.
Absolutely. Life, the force of life, capital L, is so powerful and so geared towards well-being and thriving and better. You know, evolution is its mantra. Better, always better. You know, try this, and whatever is better will succeed. And that image of the iris bud, there's a poem by Dylan Thomas that I love, and I forget it and I'll get it wrong, but you know the one I'm talking about. The force through the green fuse which drives the flower. And that's beautiful. Life. It's just this thing that just wants to grow and to be more and to just, and nothing can stop it. This has been such a long journey for me to sort of discover this. It's like everything you want, including all the songs that I would ache for when I couldn't hear them and I was like, what's wrong with me? I've lost my gift. You know, everything you want will just show up if you let it, if you relax and you believe and you have a faith in your inner guidance.
Now, your latest album, Land and Sea, is actually a double album. It's been called a masterpiece. You've had great reviews. You've been on tour with it. Let's just talk a little bit about your album. I mean, what is the album about? What's at the heart of it? And what inspired you to create this album?
Well, I didn't really know what it was going to be when I started writing. Just started writing. It was just coming. And I noticed that the songs were kind of falling into two different camps. These all looked like a family portrait of this gene pool, and these all looked like a family portrait of a very different gene pool. So I thought, you know, this might be weird to put them on the same record and have that sort of jarring auditory experience of being in this world and then jumping back to this world. And I thought, let's just separate them. Let's just separate them. And then as I looked at them, thematically they were coalescing around ideas that were in contrast with each other. And everything about them needed to be treated differently. I needed a different producer, I needed different instrumentation, I needed them to be really wholly separate worlds. So the land stuff is the fun, buoyant, pop, rock, cheeky stuff that I love to play live and I love to play with a band. And I did that with Joel Plaskett, who's a wonderful singer-songwriter. And we did that in a studio, mostly live, really fast, taking risks, you know, with guys that I have played with for many years. That was a thrilling experience. Sea was a totally other method and group of people. We had 2 days to record it. Myself and the co-producer Jonathan Goldsmith, who is a film composer, he wrote 3 of the arrangements, I wrote 4. We came in on a Saturday, rehearsed with the orchestra and the conductor, and then the next day recorded it in 6 hours.
Talk about pressure.
Oh my God. I sang for 9 hours that day.
Yeah.
It was a test of faith, for sure, for me. I mean, it was really hard to fall asleep the night before, thinking, oh my God, how am I going to sing for 6 hours? How am I going to not fall apart? Because Jonathan, my co-producer, said, if Sea, which is the one we did with the orchestra, if Sea is supposed to be about the mysterious and that sense of the eternal, you can't go in there and use Pro Tools to make it safe. He said, you have to play with them and they have to play with you. You have to be responding to their playing, they have to be responding to your playing. We can't use click, we can't use any of the benefits of modern technology. This needs to be a living thing. And he was so right. So all of the safety nets were gone.
Did that scare you?
Are you kidding? Yes. It was terrifying. It was terrifying to, I was thinking 3 or 4 days before the recording, what if I get a cold?
Yeah.
All kinds of things could happen. But they didn't.
And here you've made a fantastic, a beautiful double album. Of course, it's been called a masterpiece. How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's nice to hear. It's always nice to hear. But it's funny, as soon as you make something and you get a little bit of distance from it, you want to make something else. You want to make something bigger, grander, deeper, wider,
And of course, that brings me to your poetry. There's a lot of depth in your poetry. You've published 2 books of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
What is your poetry really about to you?
I think it's my way of figuring out the world, of listening to the world and trying to figure it out. It's my way of making sense of what happens, of what our place is in this unbelievably complex universe. How do you reconcile the terrifying beauty in it and the utter horror of some of it? How do you reconcile these things? How do you reconcile the serendipity that happens in people's lives? How do you reconcile amazing sudden surges of power and faith and belief, and then these terrible dips and lows? Like, I really long to understand, and
finds its way into your art.
It does, and I feel like when you're truly making something, and this may sound a little far out, but when you really make something and when you can look back on it 2 years and go, God, that is beautiful, I love that, I'm so proud of that, you know that it wasn't you making it. It was whatever that inner guidance is. It's whatever it is within us that we know to be eternal. It is this thing, it's the force through the green fuse which drives the flower. It's life. That's why the first song on Land and Sea is life. This fire that created universes, this kind of engine of endless energy that is just constantly seeking expression in the world. And that fascinates me, and I could write music or art or make paintings about that for another 300 years if I was given it.
Sarah, we're just going to take a quick break, and that means it's my Good to Know Minute. And this is when I ask my guests for their top success tip. To you, what would you say is your top success tip?
Follow your bliss. Listen to your inner guidance. That's it.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story and your inspiration. And I wish you all the best in your next project in Montreal and beyond.
Thank you so much.
I've been speaking with Sarah Slean, singer, poet, artist. I would encourage you to find out more about her and her touring dates and her records and her paintings and her poetry at sarahslean.com. Well, if you are interested in transforming your life, I hope these stories inspire you. You've been watching Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner. See you soon. And of course, check out my website at extraordinarywomentv.com.